The question comes at the worst possible moment, as Sharon is balancing three insulated bags and trying to navigate the revolving door of Kang Industries' gleaming headquarters. She's delivered to this building twice a week for the past 4 months, always professional, always efficient. But today, Jiwan Kang stops her in the executive suite's hallway before she can make her usual quick escape. "Ms. Rivers," his voice stops her mid-step, "would you have dinner with me? Friday evening, perhaps?" Sharon turns, gripping the empty bags tighter than necessary. In the golden afternoon light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, Jiwan looks different from the composed businessman who usually signs her invoices with barely a glance. There's something unguarded in his expression, a softness around his eyes that makes her pulse quicken despite herself. His hands are in his pockets, not his usual commanding stance, and she realizes with a start that he's actually nervous. Her heart does something foolish and dangerous. It flutters. For a moment, she lets herself imagine it. Dinner at one of the upscale restaurants he probably frequents, conversations that aren't about portion sizes and delivery schedules, seeing him in a context that has nothing to do with catering contracts. The possibility hangs between them, tempting and warm. But Sharon has worked too hard to get here. 3 years ago, she was juggling morning shifts at a diner, afternoon prep work at a hotel kitchen, and late nights building her catering business from a borrowed food truck. She remembers the exhaustion, the burned hands, the monthly terror of making rent while investing every spare dollar into equipment and ingredients. She remembers the skeptical looks from potential clients who saw a young black woman with big dreams and little capital. She remembers proving them wrong, one perfect event at a time. Her business isn't just her livelihood, it's her identity, her pride, her proof that she belongs in spaces that weren't designed for people like her. She won't jeopardize that for butterflies in her stomach, no matter how compelling the man causing them. "I don't mix business with pleasure, Mr. Kang." Her voice comes out steadier than she feels. Professional. Final. "I'm sure you understand." Something flickers across Jiwan's face. Disappointment, certainly, but also something that looks remarkably like respect. His eyes hold hers for a long moment, and she sees admiration there, clear and unvarnished. He understands boundaries. He understands sacrifice. Perhaps he even understands her in a way that makes this moment both easier and infinitely harder. "I do understand," he says quietly. Then, with a small smile that doesn't quite hide his regret, "Though I hope you'll forgive me for not giving up quite so easily." The set of his jaw tells her he means it. This isn't over, that jaw says. This is just the beginning. The next afternoon finds Sharon in Kang Industries' marble lobby, reviewing event plans with Jiwan's assistant. She's deep in discussion about dietary restrictions and table arrangements when a familiar voice bellows across the cavernous space. "Sharon Lynn Rivers, if you're watching right now, kindly comment where you're watching from." Now, back to the story. She spins around just in time to see Ben, 6 feet of pure joy and mischief, barreling toward her. Her childhood cousin, her partner in crime, the boy who used to steal cookies from her grandmother's kitchen with her. He sweeps her into a spinning hug that lifts her feet off the ground, and she's laughing, really laughing, in a way she hasn't in weeks. "Put me down, you absolute menace!" She's smacking his shoulder when he finally sets her down, both of them breathless with laughter. "What are you even doing in New York? Last I heard you were in Atlanta." "Got transferred 3 weeks ago. Aunt Carol gave me your business info. I've been meaning to track you down." Ben is grinning, still holding her at arm's length like he can't quite believe she's real. "Look at you, all professional and successful. Remember when we used to cater those pretend fancy dinners for our stuffed animals? Using your mom's good plates without permission, you mean? We both got grounded for a week." They're reminiscing, talking over each other, filling in years of gaps with the easy shorthand of people who've known each other since before they could remember. Sharon feels lighter than she has in months, reminded of a version of herself that existed before business plans and profit margins, back when joy was simple and uncomplicated. 37 floors up, Jiwan stands at his office window, watching. He tells himself he's taking a break from the acquisition report on his desk. He tells himself he's simply noticed activity in the lobby, but he can't look away from Sharon, his Sharon, though he has no right to think of her that way, in another man's arms. The jealousy that floods through him is new and terrible, a physical sensation that tightens his chest and clenches his jaw. He's felt desire before, certainly, interest, even infatuation. But this raw possessiveness, this burning need to be the one making her throw her head back in laughter, this is foreign territory. He watches the man spin her again, watches her playful punch to his arm, watches them together with the ease of people who share history. Who is he? An old boyfriend? A current one? The thought makes Jiwon's hands curl into fists against the windowsill. 20 minutes later, when Sharon returns to the executive floor, she's still glowing with happiness. But the warmth dies in her throat when she sees Jiwon standing in his office doorway. His usual composure is fractured, his tie is loosened. When did he loosen his tie? And there's something dangerous in his eyes, something that makes her acutely aware of how close he's standing. Who was he? Your boyfriend. The question comes out wrong. Too sharp, too demanding, almost possessive. The word hangs in the air between them like an accusation. Sharon feels her own spine straighten in response, her earlier joy curdling into irritation. She spent years dealing with men who think they have a right to information about her personal life, who treat her time and attention like commodities they can purchase. She's been underestimated, dismissed, and occasionally harassed. She's built armor against it all. "Not my boyfriend," she says coolly, meeting his eyes without flinching. "And frankly, not your business, Mr. Kang." She emphasizes his formal name deliberately, rebuilding the professional boundaries between them. She doesn't owe him explanations. She doesn't owe him anything beyond the quality catering services outlined in their contract. The fact that she finds him attractive, that his vulnerability yesterday stirred something protective in her chest that she's thought about. His dinner invitation far more than she should have. None of that changes the fundamental truth. She is the service provider, he is the client, and the line between them must hold. But to Jiwon, her careful evasiveness feels like confirmation of every fear that's been building since he watched that reunion in the lobby. The way she won't quite meet his eyes now, the slight defensiveness in her posture. And there, he notices it suddenly, an elegant bag of gourmet chocolates tucked into her catering supplies, the kind from that boutique shop on Madison Avenue. A gift. From him. Something in Jiwon's chest turns to ice even as it burns. Jiwon doesn't sleep that night. He lies in his penthouse bedroom, watching the city lights blur through floor-to-ceiling windows, replaying the cold distance in Sharon's voice. "Not your business, Mr. Kang." Each word had been a door closing, a boundary reinforced, a reminder that he had no claim to her beyond signed contracts and professional courtesies. He's built an empire on calculated risks, on knowing when to push and when to wait, but this, Sharon, requires a different kind of calculation entirely. She'd been clear about her boundaries. She doesn't mix business with pleasure. And as long as Kang Industries remains her client, as long as he signs her invoices and approves her proposals, he will only ever be Mr. Kang. Professional, distant, impossible. Around 3 a.m, watching the sky begin its slow fade from black to charcoal, Jiwon makes his decision. If the business relationship is the obstacle, then he'll remove it. It's audacious, possibly insane, definitely the kind of impulsive move his board members would question. But for the first time in his carefully controlled life, Jiwon doesn't care about logic or strategy. He cares about the woman who looked at him with such careful professionalism when all he wanted was for her to see him, really see him, as just a man. Sharon's phone rings at 9:30. Friday morning, interrupting her breakfast meeting with a potential new client. She doesn't recognize the number, but the area code is local, so she excuses herself and steps away from the table. "Rivers Catering, this is Sharon." "Ms. Rivers, this is Jiwon Kang." His voice is crisp, businesslike, giving away nothing. "I'm calling to inform you that effective immediately, I'm transferring all Kang Industries catering contracts to my events manager, Catherine Park. You'll work with her directly from this point forward. Our business relationship is ending." The words hit like a physical blow. Sharon's stomach drops, her hand tightening around the phone. I I see." She forces her voice to remain steady, professional, even as panic claws up her throat. "May I ask if there was a problem with our service?" "No problem at all. This is simply a structural change on our end." A pause. "Catherine will contact you next week to review upcoming events. Thank you for your guy. Excellent work." He hangs up before she can respond. Sharon stands frozen in the restaurant's corridor, phone still pressed to her ear, trying to process what just happened. Kang Industries represents 30% of her quarterly revenue. They're her most prestigious client, the name she leads with when pitching to other corporate accounts. And she just lost them. Because she'd been too curt yesterday? Because she'd refused to explain about Ben? Had her insistence on boundaries cost her the contract she'd worked so hard to secure? She barely makes it through the rest of her breakfast meeting. The potential client signs a contract for 3 events, which should feel like a victory. Instead, it feels hollow. All Sharon can think about is Jiwon's cold, professional tone, so different from the vulnerable man who'd asked her to dinner just 2 days ago. That night, she stress bakes 3 dozen lemon lavender cookies she doesn't need, trying not to calculate exactly how much. Revenue she's lost, trying not to replay every interaction with Jiwon, to figure out where she went wrong. Saturday morning arrives with unseasonable warmth, the kind of October day that feels borrowed from September. Sharon's in her apartment, still in pajama shorts and an oversized t-shirt, responding to work emails and definitely not thinking about Jiwon Kang when her doorbell rings. She's not expecting anyone. Through the peephole, she sees a man in jeans and a charcoal Henley, holding flowers, a riot of autumn colors, nothing conventional, and a familiar bag from that boutique chocolate shop. It takes her brain a full 3 seconds to recognize him without the armor of a suit. Jiwon Kang is at her door, looking nervous. Sharon opens it slowly, suddenly hyper-aware of her bare legs and unwashed hair. "Mr. Kang?" "Jiwon," he corrects softly. "Just Jiwon. May I come in?" She steps aside wordlessly, watching him enter her small apartment, her space that's nothing like the glass and steel environments where she usually sees him. He looks around at her mismatched furniture, her walls covered in framed photos and local art, her kitchen visible through an open doorway with its professional-grade equipment crammed into residential space. He looks, she realizes, like he belongs here, like the casual clothes have stripped away some essential formality and revealed something more real underneath. "These are for you." He extends the flowers and chocolates, and his hands are almost shaking. "I need to explain about yesterday. You fired me." The words come out more wounded than she intended. "No. God, no, Sharon. I removed the only obstacle between us." He sets the gifts on her coffee table and turns to face her fully. "You said you don't mix business with pleasure. You were right to set that boundary. So I made sure I'm not your client anymore. Now I'm just a man standing in your apartment, falling completely for you, terrified I've already ruined any chance I had." Sharon's breath catches in her throat. The morning light from her window illuminates his face, and she sees everything there: vulnerability, hope, fear, desire. This isn't the composed businessman who commands boardrooms and signs million-dollar deals. This is someone who's taken off every piece of armor and is standing before her, undefended. "You can't just—" she starts, but he continues, words tumbling out like he's been rehearsing them all night. "I haven't been able to focus on anything. Yesterday, when I saw you with that man, when he made you laugh in ways I haven't managed yet, when he touched you so easily," Jiwon's jaw tightens. "I nearly lost my mind. I know that's not fair. I know I have no claim on you. But I need you to know. I'm falling for you, Sharon. Completely. And I couldn't spend another day as just your client, pretending professional courtesy was enough when all I want is everything." The silence that follows feels enormous. Sharon sinks onto her couch, and after a moment, Jiwon sits beside her, careful to leave space between them, to not presume anything. "That was Ben," she says finally. My cousin. We grew up together. He's like my brother. He just moved to New York, and I hadn't seen him in 2 years. The relief that floods Jiwon's face is so profound it's almost comical. His shoulders drop, his eyes close briefly, and when he opens them, they're suspiciously bright. Your cousin, he repeats, like the words are a benediction. My cousin, Sharon confirms. Then, because this conversation requires honesty, but Jiwon, you can't just demand to know about my personal life. That possessive tone yesterday, that doesn't work for me. I need respect, not control. Her words are firm but kind, and she watches understanding dawn on his face. Real understanding, not defensiveness or excuses. You're right. His voice is quiet, stripped of any pride. I'm not used to feeling like this, out of control, uncertain, but that's not an excuse. I handled it wrong. I let jealousy make me act like I had some right to your explanations, your time, your attention. I'm sorry, Sharon. Truly. She studies his face. The sincerity there, the willingness to be corrected, the absence of ego. This is growth in real time, vulnerability without performance, and something in her chest, something she's kept carefully locked away behind professional boundaries and hard-won caution, begins to unlock. Tell me, she says softly, why you really came here today. Jiwon meets her eyes. Because I want to know everything about you, not as leverage, not as control, just because I want to understand what makes you laugh, what you dream about, what keeps you up at night. I want to earn the right to be someone you trust with those things, and I wanted you to know that I'm willing to risk everything, including a major business relationship, for the chance to try. They start dating carefully, like two people learning a new language together. Sharon sets boundaries that Jiwon respects without question. Weeknight dates end early when she has morning prep work, she pays for every other meal despite his protests, and business remains business. When Catherine Park calls with questions about an upcoming gala, Sharon's tone is purely professional. No trace of the woman who spent Sunday morning wrapped in Jiwon's arms, laughing at his terrible attempt to make pancakes. 3 weeks into their relationship, Jiwon makes his first misstep. They're having dinner at a quiet Italian place in the West Village when he mentions, almost casually, I've been thinking about your expansion plans. I could invest, quietly, no strings attached. You'd maintain complete control, but you'd have the capital to open that second location you mentioned. Sharon's fork stops halfway to her mouth. She sets it down with deliberate care. No. Sharon, it's not charity. It's a sound investment. I've seen your books. You showed me, remember? Your profit margins are excellent. Your client retention is exceptional. Any investor would... When I expand, Sharon interrupts, her voice quiet but firm. It'll be because I earned it. Because I saved the capital or secured a loan based on my own credit and reputation, not because my boyfriend wrote a check. The word boyfriend still sounds new between them, almost fragile. Jiwon reaches across the table, but Sharon pulls her hand back, not angry, but resolute. Do you understand what it took for people to take me seriously? She asks. A 24-year-old black woman with culinary school loans and a dream? I heard no 100 times before I heard yes. And when I finally got my foot indoors, it was because my food was undeniable, because my service was flawless, because I made myself impossible to ignore. If I take your money, every success afterward will have an asterisk. People will say I only made it because of who I'm sleeping with. Jiwon absorbs this, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding to something like shame. You're right. I'm sorry. I was thinking like a businessman, not like your partner. I won't bring it up again. But his protective instincts manifest in other ways, smaller and more subtle. He learns her schedule without asking, absorbing the rhythm of her weeks, the chaos of Friday weddings, the marathon prep sessions for Sunday brunches. When she mentions a late-night corporate event in Midtown, his driver appears without explanation, waiting to take her and her staff safely home. When she works 14-hour days and forgets to eat, lunch appears at her kitchen door. Nothing fancy, just sandwiches from the deli she mentioned loving, with a note that says only fuel. Sharon protests at first. "I can take care of myself, Jiwon." "I know you can," he says simply. "But why should you have to when I can help? This isn't about you being incapable. It's about me wanting to make your life a little easier when I can. Let me do this?" So she does. And slowly, she finds herself relaxing into being cared for, not managed, not controlled, but genuinely supported. Ben's visit happens on a Thursday evening. He calls ahead this time, asking if he can meet this Jiwon guy properly. They agree on drinks at a bar in Brooklyn, neutral territory. Sharon arrives early, nervous in ways she hasn't been since high school. When Jiwon arrives, Ben is already sizing him up. They shake hands. Ben's grip deliberately firm, Jiwon steady and unflinching. They order drinks, exchange pleasantries about Ben's new job, the weather, the Knicks' disappointing season. Then Ben leans forward, and his entire demeanor shifts from casual to serious. "Listen, man, I need you to understand something about Sharon. She's worked harder than anyone I know. Harder than anyone I've ever met, actually. 3 jobs while building a business from nothing, rent paid late so she could afford a new oven, crying from exhaustion, but still perfecting recipes at 2 in the morning because good enough wasn't in her vocabulary." Ben's eyes are steady on Jiwon's face. She's brilliant and strong, and she doesn't need anyone to rescue her. But she deserves someone who sees all of that and values it. Someone who adds to her life instead of trying to reshape it. "You hurt her, you answer to me." The threat hangs in the air, and Sharon holds her breath. But Jiwon doesn't bristle or get defensive. He simply nods, meeting Ben's eyes with complete sincerity. "I'd expect nothing less," Jiwon says. "If I were in your position, I'd say the same thing, probably more aggressively." Then, to Sharon's surprise, Jiwon leans forward too. "Can I ask you something? What's Sharon's favorite childhood memory? What makes her laugh? Really laugh, not just polite laughter? What does she dream about that she doesn't say out loud?" Ben blinks, clearly not expecting this. He glances at Sharon, who's watching Jiwon with an expression Ben recognizes from when they were kids, the look she got when she discovered something unexpected and precious. "Her favorite memory? Probably the summer we were 10. Her grandmother taught us to make peach cobbler from scratch. We picked the peaches ourselves, got covered in juice and flour, burned the first 2 attempts. But when we finally got it right..." Ben smiles at the memory. Sharon said it was the first time she understood that cooking wasn't just about following recipes. It was about love made tangible. Jiwon listens intently, and Ben watches him file away every detail like it's precious information. They talk for another hour, Ben sharing stories, Jiwon asking thoughtful questions, never performing or trying to prove anything. He genuinely wants to understand Sharon through the eyes of someone who's known her longest. When they finally leave, Ben pulls Sharon aside while Jiwon's calling for his driver. "Okay, I'll admit it, he's good people. The way he looks at you, like you hung the moon and the stars and he's just grateful for the light. Don't let that one go." The real test comes 2 weeks later, when Jiwon visits Sharon's commercial kitchen for the first time. It's tucked in an industrial area of Queens, modest but meticulously organized. Her staff, Keisha, plus 2 part-time prep cooks, Jerome and Lucia, have heard about Jiwon but never met him. When Sharon mentioned he'd be stopping by, the reactions were mixed. "What if it doesn't work out?" Keisha had asked, worry creasing her forehead. "What if we lose the contracts we've built? I've got 2 kids, Sharon. I need this job to be stable." "We won't lose anything," Sharon had assured her. "I've kept everything separate. Our business stands on its own merit. It always has, and it always will." But when Jiwon arrives that Wednesday afternoon, stepping into the organized chaos of prep for a Thursday wedding, there's still tension in the air. He's in a black suit, clearly, coming from the office, and he looks absurdly out of place among the industrial appliances and flour-dusted surfaces. Keisha greets him with cautious warmth. Jerome offers a respectful nod. Lucia barely looks up from the vegetables she's precisely dicing. Jiwon surveys the kitchen, not with judgment, Sharon notes, but with genuine interest. This is incredible. You've optimized the workflow beautifully. Thank you, Sharon says, professional but guarded, aware of her staff's watching eyes. Then Jiwon does something that surprises everyone. He removes his watch, expensive, Sharon knows, and sets it carefully aside. He rolls up his sleeves. What can I help with? I'm not a chef, but I can follow instructions. The kitchen goes quiet. Keisha exchanges glances with Jerome. Sharon opens her mouth to protest, but Jiwon continues. If I'm going to be part of Sharon's life, I should understand what she's built. Not just the business side, the actual work, the craft. Will you teach? Me? He's looking at all of them, not just Sharon, including them, respecting them as the team that makes Sharon's vision real. Keisha's face breaks into a slow smile. You know how to julienne vegetables? Not at all. Show me. For the next 2 hours, Jiwon learns to prep vegetables under Lucia's exacting instruction, helps Jerome portion proteins, listens to Keisha's stories about the kitchen's early days. He's terrible at dicing. His pieces are comically uneven, and he says so with self-deprecating humor that makes Lucia actually laugh. He asks smart questions about workflow efficiency and food costs, but he also asks about their lives, their families, what they love about the work. Sharon watches from across the kitchen, supposedly focused on sauce preparation, but really observing this man, this CEO who commands boardrooms, humbly learning from her staff, treating their expertise with genuine respect. When he finally leaves, flour on his expensive shoes and a takeout, container of the staff meal in his hands, Keisha approaches Sharon with a knowing smile. Okay, boss, I take back every worried thing I said. That man's a keeper. The truth comes to Sharon not through confrontation, but through observation. 6 weeks into their relationship, she's at Jiwon's penthouse, waiting for him to finish a late conference call. His laptop is open on the dining table, not deliberately left for her to see, but not hidden either. The screen shows an email chain, and Sharon's eyes catch on certain phrases as she walks past. Soul connections, restructuring legacy operations, compliance concerns with the transition. She doesn't snoop. She doesn't need to. The pieces she's been subconsciously collecting suddenly form a picture. The way certain business associates treat Jiwon with a deference that goes beyond professional respect, almost like fear. The cryptic comments from Ben about looking into Jiwon's background. The fact that Kang Industries' success story, when she'd researched it, had some conspicuous gaps in its early history. When Jiwon emerges from his office, loosening his tie with visible exhaustion, he finds Sharon sitting very still on his couch. The look on her face stops him in his tracks. We need to talk, she says quietly. Jiwon's expression shifts, not to defensiveness, but to something like resignation mixed with relief, as if he's been waiting for this conversation, dreading it, but also knowing it was inevitable and perhaps even necessary. He sits across from her, maintaining distance, giving her space. What do you want to know? Everything, Sharon says. The truth about your business, about your family's legacy, about the parts you haven't told me. Jiwon is quiet for a long moment, his hands clasped between his knees. When he finally speaks, his voice carries the weight of shame and honesty in equal measure. My grandfather built Kang Industries in Seoul after the war. Not all of his methods were legitimate. He had connections to organized networks, not violent crime, but gray areas. Protection arrangements, information brokering, influence trading. My father inherited those connections along with the business. Jiwon meets her eyes. When I took over 8 years ago, I inherited them too. Sharon's stomach tightens, but she keeps her expression neutral, listening. I'm not a gangster, Sharon. I've never hurt anyone, never been involved in anything violent. But my power extends beyond boardrooms and legal contracts. There are people in Seoul and New York who owe my family favors going back decades. There are arrangements and understandings that exist in shadows rather than on paper. He pauses, and Sharon can see how much this confession costs him. I've been working for years to legitimize everything, to transform the company into something completely clean. But my family's legacy is complicated. Untangling decades of gray area dealings takes time and some connections. Can't just be severed without consequences. The silence that follows feels vast. Sharon processes his words, reconciling them with the man she's come to know, the man who learned to julienne vegetables in her kitchen, who asks about her dreams, who looks at her like she's precious and rare. "Are you in danger?" she asks finally. "Am I?" "No. I've been careful to keep you completely separate from any of that world, and I'm not involved in anything that would put either of us at risk. But I won't lie to you, Sharon. My reputation in certain circles is built on a foundation I didn't choose, but that I'm still responsible for. I'm working to change it, to build something better, but it's not a quick process." Sharon stands, needing to move. She walks to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the glittering city below. Behind her, she hears Jiwan's careful stillness, him waiting for her judgment. "I need time to think," she says without turning around. "Of course." His voice is steady but strained. "Take all the time you need. And Sharon, I understand if this is too much, if you can't, if you decide this isn't something you can be part of. I'll understand." Sharon spends the next 3 days in careful deliberation, gathering perspectives from the people who know her best and love her most. She calls her parents first, driving up to their house in Connecticut on a gray Saturday morning. Her father, Malcolm Rivers, is a retired Army colonel, a man of absolute principles and unwavering moral clarity. Her mother, Denise, is a social worker who spent 30 years seeing people in shades of gray rather than black and white. Over coffee at their kitchen table, Sharon lays out everything Jiwan told her. Her father's face grows progressively more stern as she talks. "Baby girl," he says when she finishes, his voice heavy with concern. "You've built something clean and honest, something you can be proud of without qualification. Can you really be with someone whose world operates so differently? Even if he's trying to change, those shadows don't disappear overnight. They follow you." Sharon nods, having expected this response. Her father's moral compass has always been absolute, one of the things she loves and sometimes struggles with about him. But her mother leans forward, her expression thoughtful. "Malcolm, remember when we met? You were fresh from a deployment you couldn't talk about, doing work that lived in shadows. You had a past built on violence, necessary violence maybe, but violence nonetheless. And you were trying to build something different, something better." Malcolm's jaw tightens, but he doesn't argue. Denise turns to Sharon. "That man is trying to change his world, not for himself. I suspect he could live comfortably enough with his family's legacy if he had to. But he's trying to change it because he wants to be someone worthy of you. That says something profound about his character. The question isn't whether his past is complicated. The question is whether he's genuinely committed to building a better future." Ben's perspective is more pragmatic. They meet for lunch in Midtown, and Sharon expects protectiveness. What she gets is harder-edged realism. "Look, I did some digging after that first bar meeting," Ben admits. "Nothing invasive, just professional curiosity. Kang Industries has a complicated history, yeah, but Jiwan's record since taking over? Clean. Not just legal, actually ethical. He's turned down profitable deals that would have required compromising. He's systematically restructured entire divisions to operate transparently. He's not just trying to change things, Sharon. He's actually doing it, even when it costs him." "But should I be part of that world at all?" Sharon asks. "Even the legitimate version?" Ben considers this. "You're asking the wrong question. The real question is, do you trust him? Not his business, not his family legacy. Him. Do you trust Jiwan? Kang, to be honest with you, to protect you, to keep building towards something better? Because if you do, the rest is just details you navigate together." Keisha's take is the most direct. Over prep work on Monday morning, she listens to Sharon's carefully edited version of events, then shrugs. "Boss, every powerful family has skeletons. Every fortune has some questionable origin story if you dig back far enough. The question is what he's doing with that power now. She pauses in her chopping. Also, and I say this with love, you're not exactly approaching this from a neutral position. You're in love with him. So the question isn't whether his past is perfect, it's whether you can accept his whole truth and still build a life together. That evening, Sharon calls Jiwon. Can you come to my apartment? We need to talk. He arrives within an hour, and the anxiety on his face breaks her heart a little. She lets him in, and they sit on her couch, the same couch where he first confessed his feelings 8 weeks ago. I've talked to my parents, to Ben, to Keisha, Sharon begins. I've thought about everything you told me, and I've made a decision. Jiwon's hands are clasped tightly, his entire body tense. Your transparency matters to me, Sharon continues. The fact that you told me the truth even though it could cost you everything, that means something. Your genuine efforts to build something better, to legitimize everything, to change your family's legacy, that matters too. You didn't choose the foundation you inherited, but you're choosing what you build on it now. She reaches for his hand, and his fingers close around hers almost desperately. But I need honesty, Jiwon. Always. No secrets, no protecting me from uncomfortable truths, because you think I can't handle them. No decisions that affect both of us made unilaterally. We're partners or we're nothing. Can you promise me that? Yes. The word comes out rough with emotion. God, yes. Sharon. Complete transparency. Always. I swear it. She studies his face, the relief there, the humility, the love that he's never quite said aloud but that radiates from every careful touch and worried glance. Then we'll figure this out together, she says. Your past is complicated, and that's okay. We all have complicated pasts. What matters is that we're building something honest between us, something clean and real. Jiwon pulls her into his arms then, holding her like she's something precious he'd feared losing. I don't deserve you, he whispers against her hair. Probably not, Sharon agrees, but she's smiling. But you're trying to. That's enough for me. The invitation arrives on embossed cardstock, delivered by courier to Sharon's kitchen on a Tuesday morning. Dinner at the Kang residence, Saturday evening, formal attire requested. Sharon stares at it while Keisha peers over her shoulder. That's fancy paper, Keisha observes. Like, we have someone whose whole job is picking out stationery fancy. His mother wants to meet me, Sharon says, and her voice sounds steadier than she feels. Jiwon had warned her this was coming. My mother is traditional, he'd said carefully over dinner the week before. She's brilliant and formidable, and she's been managing our family's public image for 40 years. She'll have questions. What he hadn't said, but what Sharon heard clearly, was, this matters. Her approval matters. Now, standing in her apartment on Saturday evening, Sharon surveys herself in the mirror. She's chosen a tailored dress in deep emerald, elegant but not submissive, expensive but not trying too hard. Her natural hair is styled in a sleek updo. Her jewelry is minimal but real. She looks like exactly what she is, a successful businesswoman who's built something from nothing and isn't apologizing for it. Jiwon picks her up himself, and the approval in his eyes when he sees her is visceral. You're stunning, he says, then more, quietly, and terrifying, in the best way. Good, Sharon says, squaring her shoulders. I'm going to need terrifying. The Kang residence is in Tribeca, a converted townhouse that manages to feel both imposing and intimate. A housekeeper opens the door, and Sharon follows Jiwon into a foyer where traditional Korean art hangs alongside contemporary pieces. The aesthetic is careful, deliberate, a family that knows exactly who they are and how they want to be perceived. Mrs. Kang appears at the top of the staircase, and Sharon understands immediately where Jiwon gets his presence. She's petite, impeccably dressed in a dove-gray suit, her hair swept into a classic chignon. Everything about her radiates controlled elegance. When she descends, her movements are measured, her expression pleasant but unreadable. Ms. Rivers, she says, extending a hand. Her English is perfect, barely accented. Welcome to our home. Mrs. Kang, Sharon responds, her handshake firm. Thank you for inviting me. Your home is beautiful. Please, call me Unji. She gestures toward a sitting room where a younger woman is already waiting. Jiwon's sister, Minji, Sharon recognizes from photos. Minji is 26, stylish in the effortless way of someone who's never had to worry about budgets, and her smile is genuinely warm. Finally, Minji exclaims, standing to hug Sharon like they're already friends. Someone who managed to make my impossible brother fall in love. I've been dying to meet you. Minji, Mrs. Kang says, a gentle warning in her tone. What? It's true. He's been insufferable for weeks, checking his phone constantly, smiling at nothing. It's unsettling. Despite her nerves, Sharon laughs. Jiwon looks caught between embarrassment and affection. Thank you for that, Minji. Very helpful. They settle into the sitting room, and a server brings tea. Korean tea, Sharon notes, prepared with ceremony. This is a test, she realizes, not of her knowledge of Korean customs, necessarily, but of her composure, her willingness to meet them in their space rather than demanding they accommodate hers. Mrs. Kang serves with practiced grace, and Sharon accepts her cup with both hands, a small gesture of respect she'd researched. She sees the flicker of approval in Mrs. Kang's eyes. Jiwon tells me you own a catering company, Mrs. Kang begins, and the interview has officially started. I do. Rivers Catering. We focus on corporate events and private functions, primarily in Manhattan and Brooklyn. And you built this yourself? No family money, no investors? My parents helped where they could, but yes, I built it from the ground up. Started with a food truck, worked 3 other jobs to fund the initial equipment purchases, and grew from there. Mrs. Kang's expression remains neutral. That must have been difficult. And now you're involved with my son, who comes from considerable wealth. That must create certain complications. Here it is, Sharon thinks. The real question underneath all the polite inquiry. Are you after his money? It does create complications, Sharon says evenly. I've been very clear with Jiwon that I don't want his financial support for my business. When I expand, and I will expand, it'll be because I earned that growth through my own work and reputation. I don't need to be rescued, Mrs. Kang. I've built something I'm proud of, and I intend to keep building it on my own terms. Something shifts in Mrs. Kang's expression, not quite approval yet, but interest. That's admirable. Although I imagine Jiwon finds your independence challenging at times, he's accustomed to solving problems, to providing solutions. Sharon doesn't miss the undertone. He's used to having control. Can you handle that? We're learning to navigate it, Sharon says. I think part of what draws us to each other is that we're both builders. We both understand what it means to create something from vision and effort. We respect each other's work and independence. That's non-negotiable for me. Non-negotiable, Mrs. Kang repeats, and now there's definitely something warming in her tone. You know what you want, what you need. That's rare. Minji, who's been watching this exchange with barely concealed glee, jumps in. Mom, stop interrogating her. You're being intimidating. I'm being thorough, Mrs. Kang corrects. Your brother is my son. I want to understand the woman who's captured his attention so completely. She turns back to Sharon. You understand, don't you, Ms. Rivers? You're a businesswoman. You wouldn't enter a significant partnership without due diligence. I absolutely understand, Sharon says. And please call me Sharon. If we're going to have this conversation, we should use first names. Mrs. Kang's lips curve into something that might, in a warmer light, be called a smile. Very well, Sharon. Tell me, what are your intentions with my son? The bluntness of the question would be shocking if Sharon hadn't been expecting it. She meets Mrs. Kang's eyes directly, refusing to look at Jiwon for support, even though she can feel his tension from across the room. I'm in love with him, Sharon says simply. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that what we're building together feels real and honest and worth protecting. I won't pretend to be someone I'm not to fit into your family's expectations. I can't be a traditional submissive partner. That's not who I am. But I can promise you that I see exactly who your son is, including the complicated parts, and I'm choosing him anyway. I'm choosing us. The silence that follows feels enormous. Minji has stopped fidgeting. Jiwon has stopped breathing. Mrs. Kang studies Sharon with an intensity that would make most people squirm. Then, unexpectedly, Mrs. Kang laughs, a genuine, almost delighted sound. "You have a spine," she says, approval clear in her voice now. "Do you know how many women have sat in this room trying to win my favor by agreeing with everything I say? Performing submission, performing tradition, performing whatever they thought I wanted to see? It's exhausting." She leans forward slightly, her entire demeanor shifting from interrogator to something almost conspiratorial. "My son is brilliant and driven and accustomed to getting his way. He needs someone who won't let him bulldoze them, who will push back when he's wrong, who has their own vision and refuses to compromise it. He needs a partner, not a subordinate." Mrs. Kang extends her hand again, and this time her smile reaches her eyes. "Welcome to our family, Sharon. I think you'll be very good for him." The relief that floods through Sharon is almost dizzying. She shakes Mrs. Kang's hand, and this time the gesture feels like sealing a pact rather than an introduction. "Thank you," Sharon manages. "That means more than you know." "Oh, I know exactly what it means," Mrs. Kang says dryly. "I was once a young woman meeting my future mother-in-law, being judged for whether I was suitable enough. I promised myself that if I ever had sons, I wouldn't care about suitability. I'd care about strength." She glances at Jiwon with something like affection. "He chose well." Minji practically bounces off her seat. "Does this mean I can steal Sharon for shopping next week? I need someone else to team up against Jiwon's terrible gift-giving skills. Last birthday, he got me a business management book." "A book, Sharon. For my birthday." "It was a very insightful book," Jiwon protests. "It was a textbook. You got me a textbook for my birthday." Minji turns to Sharon. "Please tell me you'll help me retaliate. I'm thinking we coordinate to get him something equally terrible, maybe a decorative throw pillow with an inspirational quote." "Live, laugh, love," Sharon suggests, and Minji squeals with delight. "Perfect. Yes, I love you already." Mrs. Kang watches this exchange with what can only be described as satisfaction. When dinner is announced, she links her arm through Sharon's as they walk to the dining room, a gesture of acceptance that isn't lost on anyone. "Tell me about your family," Mrs. Kang says. "I want to know everything. Where you come from, what shaped you. If we're going to be family, I should understand your foundation as well." And just like that, the interrogation becomes a conversation. By the time dessert arrives, Sharon is sharing stories about learning to cook with her grandmother, and Mrs. Kang is reciprocating with tales of navigating Seoul society as a young bride. Minji is planning elaborate schemes to embarrass Jiwon, and Jiwon himself is watching Sharon with an expression of such profound gratitude and love that it makes her chest ache. Later, in the car driving back to Manhattan, Jiwon takes her hand. "Thank you," he says quietly. "For what?" "For being exactly who you are, for not performing or pretending. My mother," he pauses, searching for words. "She doesn't give her approval easily, but you earned it honestly. That matters to me." Sharon squeezes his hand. "Your sister is delightful, by the way. We're definitely getting you that inspirational pillow." "I'm terrified," Jiwon says, but he's smiling. "You two together are going to make my life complicated." "Good," Sharon says. "You could use a little complication. Keeps you humble." "Humble," Jiwon repeats, pulling her closer. "Is that what we're calling it?" "That's exactly what we're calling it," Sharon confirms. And when he kisses her, it tastes like relief and promise, and the beginning of something that feels remarkably like home. Sharon's phone buzzes at 6 in the morning with a text from her mother, landing at 2 p.m. "Your father's already mentally preparing his interrogation questions. Fair warning." She shows the message to Jiwon over coffee in his kitchen and watches his expression shift from amused to apprehensive. They've been together for 4 months now, navigating complicated families and complicated histories. He's met her parents over video calls, brief, polite conversations where her father remained cordial but reserved. But this is different. This is Malcolm and Denise Rivers, flying in from Atlanta specifically to meet the man their daughter is building a life with. Your father is former military, G1 says, and it's not a question. Army colonel, 30 years of service, and yes, he will absolutely treat this like a security clearance interview. Sharon reaches across to squeeze his hand. Just be honest. That's all he really wants, to know you're genuine. And if honest isn't enough? Sharon considers this. My father's protective because he's seen me work myself to exhaustion building my business. He's seen me sacrifice relationships, social life, sleep, everything to make Rivers Catering succeed. He wants to make sure you understand what that means, what I'm worth. I do understand, Jiwon says quietly. But I also understand he needs to see that for himself. They meet at a restaurant Sharon chooses deliberately. A family-owned Italian place in Brooklyn, good food but not pretentious, the kind of spot where conversation matters more than being seen. When her parents arrive, the embraces are long and warm. Denise holds Sharon's face, searching for signs of stress or unhappiness and finding neither. Malcolm's hug is tight, protective, and when he releases her, his eyes immediately move to Jiwon. Mr. and Mrs. Rivers, Jiwon extends his hand, his posture respectful. It's an honor to finally meet you in person. Malcolm's handshake is firm, assessing. Mr. Kang. Please, call me Jiwon. We'll see, Malcolm says, and Denise shoots him a look that clearly means be nice, but Malcolm's expression doesn't soften. They settle at their table, and for the first few minutes, conversation stays safe. The flight, Atlanta weather compared to New York's. Autumn chill, praise for the restaurant's bread. But Sharon knows her father, knows he's gathering his thoughts, preparing his approach. He's a strategist by training and temperament. The interrogation begins over appetizers. So, Jiwon, Malcolm says, setting down his water glass with deliberate care. Sharon tells us you run Kang Industries. Tell me about your business. It's a deceptively simple question, but Sharon sees what her father's really asking. Are you legitimate? Can I trust you with my daughter? Jiwon doesn't hesitate or deflect. Kang Industries focuses on commercial real estate development and property management, primarily in New York and Seoul. We've recently expanded into sustainable building initiatives, retrofitting existing structures for energy efficiency. He pauses, then continues with careful honesty. My family's business history is complicated. My grandfather built the company using methods that weren't always above board. I've spent the last 8 years working to legitimize everything, to build something I can be proud of. It's been slow, sometimes frustrating work, but it matters to me. Malcolm's expression doesn't change, but Sharon sees the subtle shift in his posture. He's listening differently now, assessing rather than dismissing. And what are your intentions with my daughter? Denise makes a small sound of protest at the bluntness, but Sharon touches her mother's hand gently. This is necessary. Her father needs to ask these questions, needs to hear the answers directly. Jiwon meets Malcolm's eyes steadily. Sir, I love your daughter. I'm in this for the long term, for everything that means. But I want to be clear about something. I don't want to take care of Sharon. She does that perfectly herself. She's built something remarkable through her own vision and work, and I respect that too much to ever try to diminish it or take it over. What I want is to stand beside her while we both build something meaningful. Be her partner, not her savior or her manager. The table falls quiet. Sharon feels her throat tighten with emotion. She's heard Jiwon say he loves her, but this clear articulation of exactly how he sees their relationship, how he sees her, this lands differently. Malcolm leans back in his chair, studying Jiwon with the intensity of someone who spent decades reading people, identifying threats, assessing trustworthiness. Do you understand what she's sacrificed to get where she is? I do. Or at least, I'm learning to. Jiwon glances at Sharon, and the warmth in his expression is undisguised. She's told me about working 3 jobs, about the exhaustion and the uncertainty, about choosing her business over easier paths, over relationships that demanded she compromise. I've seen her work 16-hour days and still show up with excellence. I've watched her manage staff and clients and logistics with a level of competence that puts most CEOs I know to shame. He turns back to Malcolm. I understand that your daughter didn't need me to succeed. She was already succeeding. What I hope is that I can add something to her life, support, partnership, love, without taking away from what she's built. Malcolm is quiet for a long moment. Sharon holds her breath. Then her father nods just once, and something in his expression finally softens. You know what I used to tell Sharon when she was growing up? Malcolm asks, though it's clearly rhetorical. I told her never to make herself smaller for anyone, never to apologize for her ambition or her strength. And I told her that the right person, the person worthy of her, would love those things about her, not despite them, but because of them. He picks up his wine glass, studying Jiwan over the rim. You seem to understand that. That's a good start. Only a start, sir? Jiwan asks, and there's the slightest hint of humor in his voice. You're dating my only daughter, Malcolm says dryly. You'll be proving yourself for the rest of your life. That's not negotiable. Fair enough, Jiwan agrees, and for the first time, he smiles, genuine and almost relieved. Denise, who's been watching this entire exchange with the knowing expression of someone who's been married to Malcolm Rivers for 35 years, finally speaks up. Okay, now that the man-to-man posturing is done, can we actually enjoy dinner? I want to hear about this Minji I keep hearing about. Sharon says she's delightful. The tension breaks. Conversation flows more naturally through the main course. Jiwan shares stories about his sister's determination to modernize certain family traditions, making everyone laugh. Sharon talks about recent catering successes and challenges. Denise asks thoughtful questions that reveal she's been paying attention to everything Sharon's told her over months of phone calls. But Malcolm still watches, still assesses. Sharon sees him observing the small things, how Jiwan listens when she speaks, truly listens, not just waiting for his turn to talk. How he automatically pours her water when her glass gets low. How he defers to her opinion when asked about their plans, making it clear this is a joint decision-making relationship. How his entire face transforms, softens, lights up, when Sharon laughs at something Denise says. Later that evening, after they've said goodbye to Jiwan and returned to Sharon's apartment, Denise makes tea while Malcolm settles heavily onto the couch. Sharon waits, knowing a debrief is coming. He's better than I expected, Malcolm admits finally. I was prepared to dislike him. Dad? No, let me finish. I was prepared to dislike him because I know what men with power and wealth can be like. I've seen too many of them treat the people around them as accessories or acquisitions. Malcolm looks at his daughter with fierce love. But that's not what I saw tonight. What I saw was a man who genuinely respects you, who sees your strength and values it. That matters. Denise emerges from the kitchen with 3 mugs, settling beside Malcolm. Your grandmother had a saying, she tells Sharon, echoing words Sharon has heard before, but that land differently now. She used to tell me, find someone who loves your strength, not despite it, but because of it. Most people, baby, they see a strong woman and they either try to break that strength or they resent it. They're threatened by it. She takes Sharon's hand. But that man, G1, he sees you, really sees you, and he lights up. When you were talking about your expansion plans, his face was so proud, not possessive proud, like, that's my woman. Just genuinely delighted that you're achieving your dreams. That's rare, Sharon. That's precious. Sharon feels tears prick her eyes. I know. I think I knew, but hearing you say it makes it real, Denise finishes. I understand, and I want you to know. We approve. Not that you need our approval to live your life, but I know it matters to you. So yes, we like him. We trust him with your heart. Malcolm clears his throat, visibly uncomfortable with the emotion in the room, but not fighting it. What your mother said. And Sharon, I'm proud of you. Not just for the business you've built, but for the way you've handled this relationship. You didn't compromise yourself. You didn't make yourself smaller. You brought him into your life on your terms with your boundaries intact. That takes strength and self-knowledge. I learned from the best, Sharon says, looking between her parents. Her father, who taught her that strength could be gentle. Her mother, who showed her that kindness didn't mean weakness. They stay up late, talking about everything and nothing, the way families do when they haven't seen each other in months. But underneath the casual conversation, Sharon feels something settle in her chest. Her parents' approval didn't change how she feels about Jiwon. She'd chosen him. Already would continue choosing him regardless. But having their blessing, their recognition that this relationship is built on something solid and real, that matters more than she'd admitted to herself. The next morning, as her parents prepare to head to their hotel, Denise pulls Sharon aside. One more thing. I watched the way he looked at you last night when you weren't paying attention, when you were laughing with your father, when you were animated talking about your work. Baby, that man is completely gone for you, utterly, devastatingly in love. Don't let your fear of being vulnerable stop you from receiving that love fully, okay? Sharon hugs her mother tight. Okay, I'll try. That's all any of us can do, Denise says. Just try. And Sharon, your grandmother would have loved him. She would have seen exactly what I see, a man worthy of her granddaughter's extraordinary heart. After they leave, Sharon stands in her apartment processing everything. She picks up her phone and texts Jiwon. My parents loved you. Well, my mom loved you. My dad has upgraded you to acceptable with ongoing monitoring. That's basically the same thing. His response comes immediately. I'll take it. Same time next quarter for my performance review, Sharon laughs, then adds, thank you for being exactly who you are, for not performing or trying to be what you thought they wanted. Just thank you. The three dots appear, disappear, appear again. Finally, come over. I want to hear everything. Also, I missed you. You saw me 4 hours ago. I know. Still missed you. Is that allowed? Sharon looks around her quiet apartment, thinks about the life she's built here. Successful, independent, entirely her own. Then she thinks about Jiwon's penthouse, about how it started to feel like a second home, how her toothbrush lives in his bathroom now, how they've started talking about futures in plural instead of singular. Be there in 20 minutes, she types. Then, because her mother's. Words are still echoing in her head because vulnerability is scary but also necessary. I missed you too. 8 months after her parents' visit, Sharon stands in her second location, a beautiful commercial kitchen in Brooklyn with twice the space of her original state-of-the-art equipment she'd dreamed about for years and enough room to triple her staff. She'd secured the lease 3 months ago, negotiated the terms herself, and financed the expansion through a combination of her own savings and a small business loan she'd earned based purely on Rivers Catering's impressive track record. No investors, no shortcuts, just her vision and relentless work. She's reviewing the week's schedule when Jiwon texts, can you get away for an hour? I want to show you something. Hurry. They meet at an address in Queens that seems familiar, though Sharon can't immediately place why. Then she sees it, the empty lot where her food truck used to park, back when she was juggling 3 jobs and building something from nothing. The lot isn't empty anymore. Someone has transformed it into a small park with benches and flowering trees. I bought the lot, Jiwon says as they walk through it, had it converted into community space. I wanted you to have something beautiful where you started something beautiful. Sharon's throat tightens. Jiwon, come with me. He leads her to the back of the park where there's a rooftop overlook, simple but perfect, with a view of the Manhattan skyline in the distance. The sun is setting, painting everything gold and rose. Jiwon turns to face her, and Sharon realizes his hands are shaking slightly. This composed, powerful man is nervous. You walked into my office 14 months ago with your portfolio and your determination, and you changed everything, he begins, his voice rough with emotion. You made me want to be better, do better. You challenged me, frustrated me, inspired me. You've never let me take the easy way out, not with you, not with my business, not with myself. He reaches into his pocket and drops to one knee, and Sharon's breath stops entirely. I don't want to take care of you, Sharon Rivers. I don't want to manage you or fix you or change you. I want to stand beside you while we both keep building the lives we're proud of. I want to be the person you come home to when the day's been impossible, the one who celebrates every victory with you, who holds space for your dreams even when they're too big to fit in words. He opens the small box, revealing a ring that's both elegant and unique, nothing traditional, everything them. Marry me. Build this life with me as true partners, equals in everything. Sharon drops to her knees in front of him, not waiting for him to finish, not caring about the careful choreography of proposals. Yes. God, yes, Jiwon. Yes. They're both laughing and crying when he slides the ring onto her finger, when she pulls him into a kiss that tastes like salt and joy and promise. 6 months later, their wedding day arrives with perfect October weather. The ceremony venue is a renovated warehouse in Brooklyn, industrial but warm, a space that reflects both their aesthetics. They've planned everything together, every detail a negotiation and compromise that somehow resulted in something more beautiful than either could have imagined alone. There are traditional Korean ceremonies, the Baek where Sharon meets Jiwon's extended family in Hanbok, the exchange of wooden geese symbolizing faithfulness. Mrs. Kang helps Sharon into the traditional wedding dress with hands that shake slightly with emotion, whispering blessings in Korean that Sharon only partly understands but feels completely. And there's soul food at the reception, her grandmother's recipes executed by Keisha and the Rivers catering team. Served alongside Korean dishes prepared by a chef, Mrs. Kang insisted on flying in from Seoul. The menu is a conversation between cultures, each dish honoring where they've come from while celebrating where they are going together. Ben walks Sharon down the aisle alongside her father, both men flanking her, her history and her family, supporting her as she steps into her future. Her father's hand is steady on her arm. Ben whispers, "You've got this, cuz." And then she sees Jiwon at the altar and nothing else matters. He's in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, but his eyes are suspiciously bright, and when she reaches him, his voice cracks on, "You're so beautiful," in a way that makes her laugh through her own tears. Their vows are honest, not Pinterest-perfect poetry, but real promises about choosing each other through difficulty, about maintaining their independence while building something shared, about loving each other's strength instead of trying to diminish it. When Jiwon promises to never stop trying to earn you, Sharon has to pause before her own vows because she's crying too hard to speak. At the reception, the celebrations, is joyous chaos. Keisha catches the bouquet with a whoop of triumph, immediately pointing at Jerome and making everyone laugh. Minji's toast is equal parts heartfelt and teasing, ending with, "Welcome to the family, Sharon. You're stuck with us now. There's no escape clause." During a quiet moment while everyone's distracted by cake, Jiwon's business partner, a serious man named David Park, who Sharon's met a handful of times, pulls her aside. "I need to tell you something," he says. Jiwon's changed the entire operation over the past year. Every gray area arrangement, every questionable connection, gone. Everything's completely legitimate now. It cost us some profitable relationships, made some people angry. But he was relentless about it. David meets her eyes. He did it for you. Sharon feels warmth spread through her chest, but she shakes her head gently. He did it for himself, too. I might have been part of the motivation, but that kind of change, that's about who he wants to be, who he's choosing to become. David considers this, then nods. Maybe you're right. Either way, you're good for him. Good for all of us, actually. The company's better for being clean. As evening deepens and the party continues, Sharon finds herself on the dance floor in Jiwon's arms, her feet aching from heels but her heart impossibly full. Their families are mingling. Mrs. Kang deep in conversation with Denise about something that has them both laughing, Malcolm teaching Minji some complicated dance move that involves more enthusiasm than skill, Ben charming Jiwon's business associates with stories from their childhood. "Mine," Jiwon murmurs against her hair, and the word has transformed over their time together. It's softer now, less possessive and more awed, less about ownership and more about wonder, wonder that she chose him, that she keeps choosing him, that this is real. Sharon pulls back just enough to meet his eyes. Yours, she confirms, then with a smile. That holds everything. And you're mine. He kisses her then, not the careful first kiss of their ceremony, but something deeper and truer. A promise that doesn't need words because they've spent over a year learning each other's languages, building trust through honesty, creating something that neither of them could have built alone. Their happiness wasn't easy or instant. It was earned through uncomfortable conversations and difficult compromises, through maintaining boundaries while building bridges, through genuine respect and the daily choice to see each other clearly, flaws included, and love what they saw. That's what makes it real. That's what makes it last. As they dance surrounded by everyone who matters, Sharon thinks about the food truck in Queens, about 3 jobs and impossible dreams, about the moment Jiwon walked into her life and everything shifted. She thinks about how far they've both come, not just toward each other, but toward becoming the people they're proud to be. "What are you thinking?" Jiwon asks, reading her expression. "That we built something beautiful," Sharon says simply, "together." He spins her and she laughs, and somewhere in the crowd her mother is crying happy tears while her father pretends he's not. And this imperfect, hard-won, genuine love is everything she never knew she needed and exactly what she deserves.